Imagine if you had an army of influencers in your back pocket, creating content and promoting your business from different perspectives daily. Well, our guest today is Jake Hay with PopShorts, where they are setting up end-to-end influencer campaigns from sourcing the ideal creator to in-depth reporting on how to actually move the lever of revenue and profit in your business while using influencers.
Welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs, growing 1% everyday podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Kaizen for Entrepreneurs podcast, where we get to discuss how to grow 1% every day in both business and in self. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And you are not only a hot topic, but something that coming into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, as well as the end of the year, is one of the best leverage case that you can have as your business. If you're storytelling within a company, you know, at the beginning of the year, you're really getting your mission, your vision. But by this time in Q4, everyone is focused on direct response, and influencer content really focuses on closing that direct response. But I'm curious, how did you start the business? How did you get into the business, Jake? Why does PopShorts really be unique in the way that they structure these influencer-based advertising and help these businesses connect with creators?
Yeah, so I got into it because I've always been fascinated by storytelling. I think every advertiser loves to talk about storytelling. It's a fun buzzword. We all do it, but we also overplay how much of a story we're really telling through our ads. I think what's nice about collaborating with influencers, especially for large brands, is you do get to tell that story, but not only from your voice, from other people's voices. You get to show authentic experiences and something that the consumer can really relate to. So identifying that quite some time ago was really a fun part of the journey as it relates to, when you think about Black Friday and influencer marketing and cutting through the noise. That's really what you're doing around the holiday season. Is advertisers are making so much noise. Everybody wants to talk about their product, their service, and becomes highly competitive. When you collaborate with a creator, you're able to cut through that, and again, in an authentic way. You're able to cut through that, again, by telling a story, something that grabs attention and converts. And so I got into the business because I saw that storytelling. And then your opening note, as we think about how timely this messaging is, influencer marketing is probably the number one tactic brands are looking at in this moment.
Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the direct response factor of it, the different perspectives, as you said, of bringing in not only just, it's hard as a business when you try to promote your product or talk about your product, no matter what everyone thinks you're selling. But as soon as it comes from a different perspective, there's a level of trust and a level of resonation that happens from the consumer that's different from the actual business owner. So my curiosity is that, as you said, you love the storytelling aspect. Did you find that people were not leveraging influencer correctly in the storytelling and not leveraging them correctly in the overall funnel that they had? What was the biggest problem that you saw that you could really solve with this influencer content outside of just being able to connect the creators and develop a piece of content that develops trust and storytelling? Is there something deeper inside of how to leverage influencers within a business that you guys are helping with PopShorts?
To think about the problems that relate to influencer marketing, you have to put yourself in our shoes at that time. I mean, this is 12 years ago. The problem with influencer marketing was people weren't doing it at all, right? You fast forward to today, and now everybody wants to do it, but just because you're doing it doesn't mean you're doing it well. So think about a couple things. How is your influencer content playing into your omnichannel approach? Where does influencer live in your funnel? Is it touching all parts of it? If not, there are ways you can optimize your influencer strategy. When we think about where influencer content lives, the obvious answer is social media. The less obvious answer is how savvy brands are using that content to live on digital billboards, as in digital out of home, to live through their programmatic buys. We're seeing influencer content on gas station TVs and connected TVs. So as we think about the challenges in influencer marketing, the challenges is keeping up with all the new stuff that's going on.
Yeah, definitely a challenge of new stuff coming in, but also leveraging this correctly. I've worked on multiple different influencer campaigns, and not every influencer derives direct revenue. And a lot of times, as you highlighted before, you can bring in an influencer that tells the perfect story, and that is really a high quality content from the influencer, but the business is not leveraging it correctly to actually bring in revenue to the company. So let's dive in. I want to talk a little bit more of how you guys are leveraging this influencer content within the funnel and really your data-driven approach of how you're seeing what's working within the market and leaning into different positionings, hopefully leveraging influencers to fix the holes in the business. But let's start off at the top. Are you working with every type of business when it comes to supporting them with influencer advertising, from the mom and pop shops to the Fortune 500? Or is there a certain business category that you're staying within at the current moment with PopShorts?
Yeah, so generally speaking, I find that our services are most effective when you're targeting top of funnel. It's folks who know who their audience is that want to spend, let's say, 25 to 50K plus a month. So that's not always mom and pop shops. I don't know that paying a premium for influencer content is right for the local, jewelry store or the local boba shop. Like, if your target audience is a 10-mile radius, you have to redefine what an influencer is. And that's a whole other separate conversation. So when we think about how PopShorts approaches influencer marketing, it is generally with Fortune 500s. We do work with a lot of startups who have already got funding, folks who are ready to really implement a larger strategy, a larger go to market. That's our core demographic. Now, that doesn't mean other types of businesses that we might not cater to shouldn't be in the space. They just approach it differently. We generally work with what's called a hybrid approach. That means we're going to grab macro creators, tier ones, and pair them with a bunch of different sizes of creators, all the way down to maybe 10,000, hyper local, 50,000, 150, et cetera. And then they're going to be paired with, of course, your creators who have millions of followers. The value in that comes from, you have to think about it two ways. Separate the idea of organic influencer content and your paid media tactics. Organic influencer content is very effective in building trust. It's very effective in garnering positive sentiment. It's not your most cost-effective type of media. It's just not, and everybody knows that. It's when you turn that asset into a paid media asset that you can start to look at a few things. One is reduce your CPM. Two is start to look at performance metrics, right? On an Instagram post, you can't even link out organically. As soon as you turn it into a paid media asset, you can now start to target for clicks, installs, customer acquisition. These tactics change once you separate the idea of organic influencer from paid media. Now, for us, they live in the same campaign. We're always packaging the two together. So it's not to say that we do them separately, but just to give listeners a basis on understanding the value of each channel and why we package them the way we do. Now, the immediate question becomes, okay, well, if paid media is where your cost efficiencies come in, it's where your performance metrics start to come in, why are we investing in organic influencer at all? And the answer is simple. One is there's an intangible here that we have to acknowledge, and that's influence. That's the ability to put this person in your content and actually drive that consideration from a consumer. That doesn't just happen because you started posting branded content. You posted a banner of your business and you turn it into an ad. That's not converting. I mean, maybe you'll get a couple, but it won't be the most efficient use of your media. We see an average of a 60% efficiency in our paid media spends when using influencer content. And the more influential that creator, the higher those results are.
For the entrepreneurs and the business owners listening to this right now, that was extraordinarily powerful. Understanding that leveraging the content organically is the base structure of it and getting it out there to the market, but to actually drive revenue to the business and get the most out of the dollar that you're spending for that influencer content, it is in the paid ad space and leveraging on the paid ads correctly so that you can see the performance come back. And then you said a 60% efficiency and you're comparing that, I'm assuming, from the influencer content compared to branded based assets.
Yeah, that is correct. Through paid media distribution. That's
Yep.
right. On social.
That beautiful number on Meta platform and social platforms. He's seeing a 60% efficiency. This means he's seeing a lot more dollars in return to his pocket compared to what he's putting out when he's leveraging influencer content compared to the brand-based assets. And this highlights what we talked about a little bit before of developing that trust. And another thing that you said that I want to hit on, you believe from all the data and what you're seeing in your business that the best use of this influencer content is at top of funnel.
So especially organic, right? We're separating the two. Organic is exclusively top of funnel. The only metrics you're going to drive from organic are impressions and views. I do think that there are ways to convert influencer content into more performance, lower funnel content. But I think that's a different piece of content. So you have Creator X, and Creator X is going to make a very authentic video. Let's say they're representing this water bottle that I have here. They're going to talk about why they enjoy it. They're going to integrate it. The best performing video in terms of views and impressions, they're just going to integrate it into their life. They're going to go do what they would do anyways and show how that product integrates. Now, that's not going to be your most performing asset for paid media. Your most performing asset for paid media is much more on the nose, immediate call to action, first 3 seconds, displaying the value and going back to call to action with, click now. They're just different in format. So natural, organic style influencer content is the top performing content at the top of the funnel. A more using that same influencer who has that same level of influence to create a different asset. Click now, buy now. This is the best bottle on the market. That's a different message. and they have different KPIs with different levels of performance depending on how you distribute them. But yeah, organic content is only going to deliver you that top of funnel. Creating a separate piece of content or editing a piece of content to be more tailored towards performance and then running that on paid media is where you're going to find that from. To be honest, there's a lot of nuances between what I just said. There's a lot between the lines there where grains of sand can fall through. And that's why we have a business, because entrepreneurs, business owners, like, to learn all this is a full-time job and then some. That's why you hire out.
Not only just copywriting. I mean, you go into the base level of understanding the difference in copywriting of top of funnel and middle of funnel, but also how to leverage the influencer within that space to get the differentiation of their creative and how to use it correctly. Jake, obviously you guys are on top at PopShorts here. You're on top of not just sourcing the right creators, but also guiding them in the process. That means that they're creating content that actually moves the needle for the business. Can you dive in a little bit more on the granularity of your unique selling proposition at PopShorts? There is a lot of other companies out there. There's there's open source SaaS systems that you can leverage to go into and find my own influencers and source them myself. There's other companies that can connect you directly with influencers. Can you talk a little bit more about what PopShorts works with the company specifically? What is the differentiation they're going to see with PopShorts and that engagement compared to the others?
There's a lot of way to approach that question, because in our business, we do a million things and each one we feel is special. But I'm going to break it down into two core factors here. One is service. We offer influencer marketing as a managed service. Now, I think it's obvious, managed service, that means service should be good. Not all service is created equal. If you're in marketing, you already know that. So we're the folks you email at midnight, you get a response at 12:05 because we're attentive. We're working around the clock to make sure these campaigns are successful. The level of service we provide, I believe, is unmatched in the industry. Now, beyond service, which makes our clients' lives easier, which is why they keep returning, right? When you look at how consistently we retain business over 90% on a year-on-year average, that means people like working with us. But why do you start working with us? As my very subtle background will show, we like to approach social media strategy from an award-winning perspective. We think, what is going to be splashy and different while remaining in budget? You don't have to have a multi-million-dollar campaign to win your first Shorty Award. You just don't. You can approach it from an idea of just being different, using the platform in a way that people might not be thinking about it, touching audiences in a way that creates an experience beyond the post. And so that's what we do for our clients. That's what we've done for over a decade now.
I love that. And a Shorty Award, I'm assuming, is an award that you guys give to your clients for doing something incredible.
Shorty Award is the way it's a social media award. It's like a Webby, a Streamy, a Shorty. They're all kind of catered towards social media advertising and campaigns.
Love it. So, and really the difference is as you can see his background here, he is winning awards left and right for what he's doing with his clients. And it's not based around his business growth. It's based around the growth of his clients, which is super, super important.
Correct.
To build something like this, Jake, you got to go through a lot of trials and tribulations throughout your process and find the rights and find the wrongs. And obviously you stand in a position of not just success, but confidence with that success. Can you highlight maybe a challenge that you went through in the development of PopShorts, or maybe a challenge you had with an individual client that would resonate with our listeners here, or potentially change the way that you look at influencer advertising for your clients?
So many. I mean, every day is a new challenge, right? That's why I love this industry. And so I'm just going to pick one out of a hat without going too far into detail here, because it was a tier one client. So I won't share all the juice, but what I will say is this is probably almost 10 years, about 8 years ago, almost 10 years ago. We had a campaign go live where, and keep in mind, at that time, social media as a landscape is a different place. Today, there are niche creators that can talk about every type of vertical, every type of concept you want a community in. It already exists or will exist very soon. And that's just the nature of social media moving at the speed of social media. That's not always been the case. Social media wasn't the same way 10 years ago. So I think we learned a lot and the industry learned a lot about authenticity around that time. And what I mean by that is it was new. It'd been around maybe 5 years where big brands are actually investing. And when I say investing, I don't mean $1 million of budget. And, when we started, a big campaign was like less than 100K still, right? Authenticity means different things to different people, but it always means representing your community with somebody who's in your community. And so when it comes to social media influencer marketing, that wasn't always how brands approached it. And there was one campaign in particular where we're speaking to a medical community, people who had a certain condition. They'd already been leveraged for a campaign by the client. We said, okay, great. They engaged all these folks who have this medical condition, make all this content like they're taken care of. And so when it came to doing a big launch, we didn't hire anybody who had that condition. We hired a bunch of other people that related to it in different ways that we felt had an authentic tie-in while not necessarily being part of that community. That community caught wind of it and said, whoa, 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 whoa. All the stuff we did for the brand was free. And you guys are now paying these big creators. Keep in mind, we had no idea. That's just the nature of the business. We're not tied into every strategy. We just see that's happening and we think, okay, let's approach it from another angle. So we immediately stopped all media. We hired every single person in that community at a fair market rate value to come in and create more content from a paid perspective before we even touched another creator post. So that was just an anecdote that happened a long time ago, but it taught us something that we never made the mistake of again. Well, two things. One is you can't make assumptions. We assumed those creators had been paid on the other side of that campaign, and it turned out it was a PR agency who had just given them some free product or something. And two is, don't speak to an audience without being a part of it, without working with people who are part of it at the bare minimum, because you'll just miss the message, and in turn, you'll miss all your KPIs and the whole objective in the first place.
You probably resonate with every single business owner and entrepreneur listening to this right now. Assumptions, and then making sure that you're part of that community. And, it's a hard part of business. We do have to make some level of assumptions in business, but the problem is I don't think we should ever enter market without validating some factor of it, right? So, and then second part of that, being really a part of the community, and what a beautiful change that your company made. What a beautiful pivot and adjustment to say, oh, okay, we had no idea. We understand now that this is the right thing to do, and sticking to our morals and our ethics. Went then and hired that whole group in. And I bet by the end of it, you had two different perspectives and excellent content across the board to promote the client.
Absolutely. And the last learning lesson there is tell your PR agency to talk to your ad agency.
Yeah.
That could have been avoided a long time ago.
Yeah. Definitely need some integration between all working parties in your business, right? If you are the head honcho and you own your company, make sure the people that you're paying work together in the best way possible to ensure they're all focused on your business growth. Jake, I love that. And obviously ahead of the curve, understanding the positioning that you are. And when I was first in the influencer advertising space in the early 2020, 2021, the space was a lot focused on getting the people that had the largest influencers, getting the people that had the best levels of engagement, but it wasn't data driven as much as you're communicating it now. The data behind where I saw the influencer industry 4 to 5 years ago was focused a lot on the data around the influencers engagement and the influencers data, instead of, I think where your company came, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're taking that data as a factor, but it's not the focus. The focus is how that actual influencers creates the data behind the client and how it affects the growth of the client. Is that correct to say?
Audience data is the most important data to influencer marketing. You have to understand not just who the influencer is, how old they are, where they live. That's all a part of it, but that's almost more a part of the creative, right? When you're talking about ad delivery, all that really matters is who's seeing it, who's consuming it, are you reaching your target? So yeah, when you think about data from an influence perspective, it's age, gender, location. It's also hyper local geographic targeting. If you're working for a state lottery partner, we do a lot of lottery ads. You're looking at influencer from a different perspective. It's not, who has 10 million followers, because you can only sell your lottery tickets in your state, or if you have another product that's a geographic product, right? So you want an influencer whose audience is over indexed, not only in that state, but sometimes that city level. And so you have to take that data to know that. Beyond that, there's things you can do with like contextual relevancies. So is a creator talking about your product, your competitor's product, your industry? We can extract that from videos. We can extract that from captions and understand who's authentically a part of this community, authentically maybe already a brand ambassador of yours you didn't even realize, or potentially on the flip side of that, who's working with your competitors. And you can reverse engineer that. Okay, my competitors are doing this. It looked pretty successful. Why? Why was it successful? Why did they align with that creator? What can I learn from that and take back and make business decisions of my own moving forward? So data is at the core of every campaign, but it's not just the data on the surface. It's the data that goes a little bit deeper as well.
And that's really what's going to drive the revenue in the back end of it. It's super important, Jake. I loved what you just said there about not just the data of where the consumer is, because that's a lot of the creative. I think that point you made is very strong, but the data on the back end of where the engagement is coming from, the help, the efforts, because you have one goal, grow the business. You're going to use the influencers to do so, but you're going to achieve that goal. So we talked a lot about the past. We talked a lot about the present of what you guys are doing. Let's dive into the future a little bit. Let's dive into where you think this is going. I think this has been a very ever-changing market since it became a huge thing back in the early 2005, 2006, 2007, and then really into 2010, 2015, I think it was the booming time for this. And then there was in my opinion, a bit of a reassessment the last 3 or 4 years on the influencer content based around the return on investment that a lot of businesses were seeing. Can you talk about where you think the industry is going to go and say the next 3 to 5 years? I believe, just, my own 2 cents, you guys are ahead of the curve and you're in a position where the rest of the industry is going to kind of follow up, where everything that they are designed for, all the efforts around influencer advertising, sources content, making sure it's beautiful, making sure it resonates, it's based around growing the business, the data around growing the business. But for you being ahead of the curve, Jake, and the company here at PopShorts, where do you see the next 3 to 5 years in the influencer space?
You also have to identify that influencer sits in different spaces. So influencer is an industry, but influencers are part of PR. It's a part of media. It's a part of affiliate marketing. It's a part of SaaS platforms. Like, if you were to look at influencer and think, oh, influencer ROI might have been tough, which part? Because we approach influencer marketing from a media perspective. It's a media buy. You pay off, a CPM, a CPV, clicks, etc. And from that perspective, it's never had a dip. We actually see massive exponential growth, not only the last 10 years, but moving forward. And I don't have all the data in front of me. I'm sure your editors can throw in some really cool graphs right here. But the industry is projected to boom, triple in 10 years. So when we think about what's next for us, it's falling forward, as I like to say. We'd be fools not to grow at the pace of our own industry. And so we look forward to falling forward, but you can't just expect to fall forward without taking steps to stay at pace, right? You have to understand what the current trends are. You have to stay ahead of what's the newest platform feature. Easiest tip for anybody in the industry. If a social media platform releases a new feature, use it immediately. The algorithms always reward new features. They just do. They want people to adopt it. They want people to use it and have positive experiences with it. So anytime a platform's like, oh, by the way, here's this new thing we're doing, take your brand and do that. And you'll see a lot of success almost every single time. I mean, I can't think of a time where that's not been true, because the platforms need adoption. The easiest way to get adoption is by reward use. So staying at pace with this industry will inevitably lead us to a lot of growth.
And let's ask about that. How do you stay at pace, right? So my last question here, I have one more question, then a bonus, and I'll let you go, Jake. How do you find your Kaizen? For the listeners out there, Kaizen is a Japanese business philosophy that means 1% progression in both business and in self every single day, right? Jake, for you personally, obviously you and the PopShorts team is on top of the ball, right? You're on top of what's happening in the influencer market. You're on top of business growth. You're on top of the leveraging of the media buying and how that's structured with that an actual business and the acquisition of customers and increase of revenue. What do you do to make sure that you're staying on top of all these new features that are coming out, that you're staying on top of the opportunities that are open in the market, and ensuring that you are the guy to turn to for all your clients of what's going to happen next in the space for both influencers as well as business growth?
You say so many nice things about me. I want to talk to you all the time. I just want more recordings of you giving me more and more compliments. I love it. How do I find my Kaizen? Well, there's two pieces to this, right? Personal and business. And I think first and foremost, if you don't love social media, if you're like, oh, I hate using TikTok, influencer marketing is not going to be for you. Like, you're going to have a really bad time. The best, most successful employees in our business are ones that are on TikTok all day for work, get off work and go use TikTok. Like that's the people who find the most success in social media, is the people who live it. Social media, I said this earlier, social media moves at the speed of social media, which is incredibly fast. And so if you're not moving at that speed, like, it's going to pass you by. So personally, you have to love social media. Professionally, you have to love social media. You have to use it all the time. These features launch and you need to know it happened to use it. These trends come and go in days sometimes, and you have to be there when it happens. If you go through the whole branded process, right? Let's say it takes you 6 weeks to go from strategy to post, which is fine. A lot of brands are that way. You can't use any trends. You cannot base a strategy on anything that is timely. You have to look at more evergreen strategies, because by the time you post 6 weeks later, it's probably over. And if you're posting a trend that's already over, that's cringy. Like, come on, dude, get with it. It makes me look old if I do that kind of thing. And I am old now.
Boomerangs. It's like people still posting boomerangs. They get made fun for it nowadays, right?
Whoa, Kyle. Nothing wrong with a boomerang.
I'm right with you, dude. I'm still posting them. I got my younger generations like, yo, you're not supposed to use that anymore. I'm like, it still looks cool.
It's definitely a solid Facebook tactic, and I'll leave it.
Yeah, for that generation, right? I love that.
You said it, not me.
Yeah. So the industry itself, I think we hit on a few different points, the Kaizen factor of you growing. So is there certain things that you look to on YouTube pages or educational pieces or something that keeps, or is it just the fact that you're so involved in the platforms? Is that really what keeps you in the pulse?
It's mostly the latter. It's mostly live it. Like I said, I live this. Like this isn't a game to me. I don't turn it off. This is just who I am day in, day out. If I took a week off work, first of all, I rarely would ever do that. But if I took a week off work, like I would come back and be like, what the hell happened? It's mostly living it. But if let's say, you're a multifaceted marketer and you can't just live and breathe social media, I get it. There are good trades. There's a lot of good newsletters I subscribe to that keep up with platform features and they take different angles. I'll shout a couple out, not that I'm affiliated with them. Tube Filter is my favorite. They look at a lot of social media trends in general, but especially YouTube. They have a great tool as well. I like Business of Apps. They take a perspective of more like the overview of app success and some new product features. There's a gentleman named Matt Navarra who's sort of he breaks a lot of trends. He leaks a lot of kind of new things before they happen. And those are three good ones to start. If you need more, you can send me an email. I'll send you a whole reading list. But I think if you're up to date on those three sources, like you'll kind of have at least a basis of what's going on. And then, oh gosh, I forgot to self plug. I just launched a newsletter. So we have our second edition coming out next week. And that would also be a great place, the best place on the world to get your social media news. I swear by it.
I love that shout out. That's awesome. But for the listeners out there and for the business owners, he's not only living it every single day, but he's also pulling these sources, these sources of information from other people that are in the space and allowing him to absorb the process. But he says it best when social media moves at the pace of social media, and you have to be in this world to understand how it's going. I loved your example of the cringy the old viral hooks or the themes that were happening. I still see some. It's like using the water bucket challenge today. You would do that, and it's like we did that challenge. No one else is dumping water on the
But it's also cyclical, right? So there is something to say about that was so old. If you brought that back, maybe it's cool again. Like baggy jeans are in. I was wearing baggy jeans when I was a kid, and it didn't look right then. It doesn't look right now on me.
Right?
But it's not. So it's cyclical. What goes comes back, and I think that is also timely too. Knowing when the cycle is ready to come back to a head and taking advantage of it could be massive if you're the right brand to do it.
Do you always feel, and this will be my last question for the bonus question, but
you said that last time, brother, but I can keep going. I got all day.
You got my brain going, man. I mean, I love this category as being someone that's data driven. Just have someone that's in your boat, that you're looking at content development in a way that's data focused. It's looking at TOF, MOF, and BOF in the creative space and understanding how you can leverage different creatives. It's super powerful. And a lot of people, for the business owners, the entrepreneurs listening to this, I've talked to many people like Jake in the same position as Jake that have no idea and concept around TOF, MOF, and BOF ideologies when it comes to the creative. Have no concept of how the influencer content leans into the paid advertising content to actually drive revenue. They are very good at sourcing creators. They're very good at writing the script structure. They're very good at putting together a contract, and it ends right there. Jake, you've gone above and beyond that, and that's why my question after question after question is coming at you. Last question before the bonus. Do you have to be the one that creates the new trend, or how fast do you feel like someone needs to hop on to really get on the wave of that engagement?
I think, and I want to approach this in perspective of influencer marketing. So I'm going to disqualify for the nature of this response anything that has to do with organic social management. So if you're listening to this and you're applying it to, oh, well, I run my brand's Instagram pages, this is a different answer for you. Your answer is go do it today because nothing's stopping you. You need to post today anyways. So why not make it that, right? It's very different. Like when you think about the influencer process, by nature of it existing at all, it doesn't happen in a day. Influencer ID, contacting them, coming up with strategies, scripting, approvals, production, approvals again, posting, reporting, that's not a day thing. So I would say, how do you approach trends? Good question. Having a retained agency is really the only way you're going to do it effectively. Somebody that's always on for you anyways, that's nimble enough to do it. If you have to create an RFP to leverage a trend, just walk away from it. It's not happening. You know what I mean? But if you have a partner that's always on with you, a retained partner that you can work with on a day-to-day basis, I would say just letting them know, and if you trust your partner, letting them do their job. We can turn a post around same week. We can probably not turn a post around same day. So I think the basis of that being able to happen in the first place, though, is trust. Do you know how much trust a brand has to have with their agency partner to say, yes, just make this happen immediately with no review, because that's what we would need. If you have to send that for review, you've already missed the trend again. So kind of a long-winded, all runabout answer to say, most folks are not in a position to leverage trends if there's a long RFP process with approvals and all these things going into it. If you have an in-house team or retained agency that's representing your best interests on a day-to-day basis, then they'll take care of it anyways. That's probably a core tenet of their strategy.
Love that. Love that. So really just being able to understand that and you brought this up earlier about the evergreen assets compared to the leveraging of the trends, right? So fitting right into that mold of understanding your timing, understanding that you don't want to be the old guy using the trend that's 3 months out, right? But making sure that if you do have a great partner like Jake at PopShorts here, and you're leveraging a company like that, that you give them the trust and understanding that they know what to do best and allows them to be malleable, quick, and be able to get on these trends before they fizzle out. Okay.
I do think trends are, and I'll say this, I do think trends are more important for organic social management, like whoever's running your pages, than they are your ads. Because you're going to want to run your ad for 90 days anyways, right? You're going to see ad fatigue about the 3-month mark. I mean, it depends. It obviously varies, but if I'm going to give a generalization, you're going to take the influencer content and run it via paid media for 3 months. And so if you're doing that, that trend's already old and not cool anyway. So don't focus your ad strategy on what's cool today. Focus on what converts. Focus your organic, your owned channels, what you can manage on a day-to-day basis, that you can be timely, that you can follow trends.
Jake, you've given so many gold nuggets today from the combination of understanding of staying with the speed of social media to understanding how to leverage the influencer content correctly, to understanding where the influencer content fits in your organic paid advertising and in the funnel where it fits comparatively to how they approach the creative that they're making. Fun question, the bonus at the end for the listeners out. Make sure you take the notes, and in the description below, we're going to find all of Jake's information. But I'd really like to know this answer from Jake because he is in this business and he is very granular about what he does, and obviously loves it. From you can see the emotion and the animation that he has coming out of here. You ever read the book Atlas Shrugged?
No.
Atlas Shrugged is a book that talks about an incredible concept that us business owners, yourself, me, and entrepreneurs listening to this, we move the world forward every single day by putting the world on our shoulders with our businesses. Without business, world does not change. Everyone's got ideas, but until you put into an operation and move it forward, it doesn't change the world. Atlas Shrugged is a book that talks about what the world would look like if we all gave up. If you, me, and all the business owners in the world, we shrugged the world off our shoulders and didn't take the pressure, didn't take the stress, and just decided to do what most people do in their life and just run a 9 to 5. So my question to you, Jake, if today, Atlas Shrugged, you, me, and all the business owners out there decided we're walking away for our companies. The restaurants are still out there. The home improvement materials still exist. All of that's still out there. What would be the first company that you would build tomorrow?
Okay, so I can only do like a 9 to 5 type company. I can't do like a.
No. This would be basically starting over. But if you had
Okay.
the opportunity to create any company in the world with
Yeah.
what you know today in your background, what would you go after?
Well, first of all, it'd be AI based because I'm the biggest believer. I use AI in every function. I barely have an original thought anymore. I just have an AI plugin and ChatGPT's in my brain. It'd definitely be AI based. I'm a big believer that AI is currently being used broadly. And the biggest advancements in AI that we're going to see are when it comes down to more niche use cases. So how are dentists using AI? How are construction companies using AI? How is the guy who does your yard, right? Landscaping companies, what are they using AI for? That's the kind of stuff that excites me because that's where I see opportunities in entrepreneurship. It's basically building a front end. You can just use a ChatGPT plugin. I'm not saying you have to like go and code your own thing. I'm saying you have to find unique use cases for AI that solve challenges for niche business owners, niche opportunity, niche industry. For me, like things I'm passionate about outside of social media, it would be social media, obviously, because that's a layup. But like, let's make it fun, right? For me, it would be like I really love garments. I love learning about like grams per square meter, organic cotton, how it's processed, and how that reaches consumers and the price differences. So some sort of AI tool that would optimize the manufacturing process for organic cotton to reach consumers at a more affordable rate than what we're seeing right now is probably something that I'd invest in.
Jake, that was the most granular answer I've had. I've asked a lot of people that question. I get answers from like, I need my coffee, so I'm starting a coffee shop, or I got to work at a gym, so I'm going to open a gym up. Or if nobody has business, the first thing they're going to need is how to help with business or how to move materials. So I'm going into, logistics and things of that nature. But Jake, you It's a pleasure to talk to you and to hear the confidence that you have in your sector of business, the understanding that you have, and then the damn passion behind it all. If I'm going to ask a question like, what would you do if the world had to start over? And your answer was like, I love what I do. I'm going to go right back into it, leverage the tools that I'm playing with today, play a little bit with textiles and cotton and have fun with that. But social media would be my layup. Means that if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner listening to this right now, and you have even considered working with influencers, you got to connect with Jake at the PopShorts team and figure out how you can find the right influencer campaign for you. Jake, how would they connect with you? What's the best way for them to engage with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, popshorts.com. My email is jake@popshorts.com. So if you're really hungry to work together, you can just send me an email. But in general, I'm on LinkedIn. I post videos. I try and post up to twice a week. I talk about these types of subjects. I just launched a newsletter. To be honest, I'm everywhere. If you can avoid me, good job, because I'm retargeting you and I'll be in your inbox soon. I promise.
Love that. Love that. All that information is going to be found below in the description. If you've gone this far, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe in the video. Leave a comment below if you've ever worked with an influencer company before and how was your experience. Because if you can comment below and find an opportunity to work with Jake directly and find a way to add influencers into your 2025 campaign structure, if you haven't done it before, I can guarantee you're going to have better results than what you saw in 2024. Thank you so much for your time, Jake. I really do appreciate it. For the listeners out there, we'll see you on the next one.